I use to represent the changing requirements on a cow during the cow production year. Let's concentrate first on this blue line, which represents a mature cow that is represented from day or month one of calving. So this is the first month of lactation, second month, and so forth. Seventh month, you're weaning that cow and taking the calf away, and you move into her being by herself till she comes back again, getting ready to calve and start over on that end. What I'm trying to represent on the far left is the TDN, or the amount of energy you should be thinking about for your cow rations. You've heard me talk about this before. So a cow that has just weaned a calf can live on about 50% or slightly less TDN. And you've heard me say this before. If you look at the paperwork in front of you, all of that cellulose is about 50% TDN. So if you get sick of cow-calf day propaganda, just feed your cows some of that propaganda and you'll save yourself a little money. Because they can live on 50% TDN, which is what we have in the cellulose that is contained in that paper. As they progress towards calving, so we're probably somewhere in here for some of you, that energy will increase to the level of about 55%. When they start milking, it goes to almost 65%, and it declines after that. The reason I put this up here is to give us a reference of where we're going to be for alternative feeds and for what is out there in terms of the concentration of energy for some of the hays that are coming in these laboratories. Before I move on to that, though, you can look at the pink line, which represents due to be first calf heifer over here at the 9th month. But as you can see, the needs are probably lower right after she is bred. That's usually sometime in the summer, so she will have a supply of extra energy, so she'll be doing good. As time progresses, you're going to look at almost a feedlot energy concentration type diet. So you have to treat those heifers in a very special way to make sure they're going to have enough energy to get propelled to breed on that second cycle after they have this baby right here. And Alan will talk to you about how that will be done prior to this time, the new concepts and strategies of getting that heifer bred on that first cycle. I want to put a little box here that represents the TDN concentration for hays that were submitted to Dairy One Laboratory in New York State, for the previous harvest year, just to represent that the range went from about 53% TDN to about 63-65%. This is all grass hay. So if you harvested this good of hay, and that's what you have in your shed to feed your cows this year, you're doing really, really good. Only these first 2 months after those cows calve will you need some extra supplementation with energy. That's where you could consider some of that alternative feeds. Of course, in this range, we don't worry about it because that's about when the cows are out grazing, so we don't need to worry too much about it. If you have this hay to feed a cow that's just weaned a calf, I would say save it, go get some corn stalks and feed them some corn stalks down here because they don't need that much energy. You give them this much energy, and that difference between this blue line and that top round line is going to be weight change, and they're going to get fatter on you, and you probably don't want to be doing that just in excess. As I said yesterday, if a cow weighs 1,400 pounds, 1,500 pounds, and is pregnant or is due to be pregnant, the fact that she becomes 1,700 pounds doesn't mean she's going to give you an extra calf or a calf and a third, right? It's just a simple same calf at about 500 to 550, 600 pounds. That's all you're going to get, whether she weighs 1,500 pounds, 1,700 pounds, 1,900 pounds. The difference between those two weights is going to be how well you treat her when she should be treated probably a little bit harshly. As you move into this part of the winter, though, for some of us, if you need to tie in a little bit of fat, you probably could use that to make sure that cow stays in condition to be able to sustain the colds that we have had here recently. Let me represent then what feeds would simply meet the requirements of those cows for energy as soon as those cows have calved. The first thing would be corn silage. So if you happen to have corn silage, it is a heck of a good feed for those first 2 months after calving. Grass will take care of them as they move out on the grazing time. Then corn stalks will take care of them as they come in to the dry lot and you have weaned that calf, and then obviously hay will take care of them after that. So if you own all these types of feeds, you're ready to go, you're fine. If you don't, you're gonna probably have hay and corn stalks maybe, or maybe just hay. So then you're just gonna have to maneuver something over here for about 2 months to be able to reach a certain energy level to make sure those cows are milking and are ready to start cycling again. For crude protein, the same thing. I'm not gonna spend as much time. If you're out on corn stalks, you're probably gonna remember to put a little protein. So I told you before, we're gonna use corn stalks once we wean those cows. So we're gonna come in and put a little protein out there. In the middle we have grass typically, or cool season grasses will contain sufficient amounts of protein, so we will be in the ranges of 12 to even 20%, so we don't need to worry too much about that. Early on, if you are using corn silage, you will need to use a protein supplement. We talked about this before. Silage comes in at about 8% protein. It will need a little bit of extra protein at that time. The other reason why I don't make a big deal with protein is the fact that the range for hays that are sampled by Dairy One, for 12 and 13, was from 7 to almost 14% crude protein. So most of the time, Minnesota forages contain a sufficient amount of protein, so we don't worry too much about it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't sample, because if you are at the 7% range, look at how much protein they will need, especially after they start milking. So you're going to need to make that up with a tremendous amount of protein so that those cows are not lacking protein, they're not going to lag behind in getting bred, et cetera, et cetera.